Hi, I'm Laura, and welcome back to the Tarot Genie for this week's lesson on card number 5 of the Major Arcana, the Hierophant. Make sure you can see that clearly. The Hierophant is number 5 in the Major Arcana. And if you recall the High Priestess, there's a similarity. We've got two pillars, and these pillars actually are the pillars of Solomon, and what was the other one? Hermes. I think that's Hermes, yes, Solomon and Hermes. Whereas in the High Priestess, they were the pillars of Boaz and Jachin. And what typically the Hierophant is associated with is traditions, conventions, orthodoxy, kind of rules or regulations. And what the Hierophant means is it's a manifestation. It's related to the word hierophany, manifestation of the sacred. And what the Hierophant does is, as an authoritative, spiritual, religious figure, the Hierophant brings the divine into daily life. He is also the dispenser of wisdom, the keys to the kingdom you see here. He's got two acolytes, two monks, who are at his feet, seemingly kind of an adoration. They are looking up to him, as the Hierophant is a spiritual authority, as indicated by his headdress, his triple cross scepter, as we call it, that triple cross scepter. That's an important symbol there. He's got the red robe. What also always jumps out at me with the Hierophant is he has his hand raised in a benediction. But what also came to me one day, and that I have not yet seen elsewhere, and this is the thing, an important aspect of the tarot of which you need to be aware. When you're learning the cards and learning the basic meanings, it is important to learn those basic meanings. I don't think someone would be as, even though someone can pick up a deck, tarot deck, and have no knowledge of it, and actually be able to discern some valuable information just intuitively. However, I think there would be a limit to that. It is powerful and useful to learn the basic symbols, terminology, the associations with the images, the traditional ones, to have that as your base. And then once you have that as your base, from then you can spring forward with your own interpretations and your own ideas. And every card, every image has a variety of possible interpretations. There's the basic overall core meaning, such as that the Hierophant is associated with conventions, traditions, orthodoxy, bringing the divine into the material realm. But there can be also other meanings or other nuances that come to light. And the nuance that came to me is that even though he's often associated this hand raised in the benediction, I also see it as, and his red robe, as signifying a stop sign. Because isn't it true that depending on your particular, if you belong to particular religion or spiritual philosophy, sometimes those philosophies are associated with telling you what you can and cannot do. And so sometimes I see this as saying, stop. No, don't move forward. Don't do beyond what's here, laid out in these pillars. I mean, we see this very strong structure in this image. So we have, this solid structure, his headdress, that conveys his authority. Of course, the crosses, everything, all that's Christian symbols. And he's associated, you feel like the people coming before him, there's almost like a religious service going on, the rites of sacrament, or that kind of situation comes to mind. He also, like the High Priestess, has a neutral gaze, but it's an intense gaze. So there's an intensity of energy associated with the Hierophant, which can impose conformity, can conform traditions. Oh, you must follow X, Y, Z. And that's why a lot of people don't like the Hierophant when it shows up, because if they tend to be unconventional people who like to break with tradition, they don't like to be reminded of traditions and conventions. But what I see the Hierophant, if you wanted to use this card, this image, to inspire you, say, for this coming week, because I always like to use and learn how to show you how to use the tarot to inspire you, is that you can use this to remind yourself, well, the philosophy that there's a phrase that Shakespeare, I don't remember which play it was from or which writing it was from, and I think it's from Shakespeare, where he said, to thine own self be true. And so if you were using the Hierophant as a way to empower yourself, say, this coming week, I came up with an affirmation that as follows. I follow, and I literally said, I follow my own empowering traditions, my own empowering traditions. So acknowledging that you have your own inner authority who guides you, who advises you, and that's the most important authority to follow, because it ultimately is. I mean, granted, we all live in certain cultures and certain traditions and their ways of doing things, but ultimately, as long as we are not harming anyone and violating society's rules that are designed to protect people and respect everyone's individual rights, as long as we're not harming anyone and doing any of that, we are advised to follow our own our own authority, to follow our own traditions, our own approaches to things. That, to me, is what is one of the most important messages that the Hierophant conveys. And let me just see if there's anything else I had noted here in my outline so that I don't forget. Well, again, as I said, he's a channel between, bringing the divine into the material realm. He's a channel between heaven and earth. And if the Hierophant shows up reversed, and you were asking about a person, and you saw the Hierophant reversed, that would possibly suggest that maybe it's someone who is an unconventional person, a non-traditionalist, maybe they're a hippie, anti-establishment, etc. That would give you some clues, because upright, this represents someone who's typically traditional, unless it's how I like to see it, as following their own inner traditions, their own inner authority. Always look at the colors. I mean, I see it, that headdress too, what pops out, the yellow headdress, is that sense of illumination. The Hierophant does have spiritual illumination, and that's why he has his own particular authority. Everything just in this image conveys to me structure and authority and that communication of the spiritual realm. Some tarot readers, he's also associated with Taurus, that's strong, Taurus energy, also associated with the earth element. So again, we've got that sense of bringing the divine into the material. A number of tarot readers associate the Hierophant, they say, this represents government. I never see that myself, but I suppose you could, and again, their right to do that, you could interpret it that way because of the conventions, because it's a system. I just see more the government is associated with the Justice card or some other card. But again, as I mentioned a few minutes ago, these cards have their basic meanings, and then it's whatever meaning comes to you as you become more versed and practice with the tarot. The song that I recommend for this tarot card that came to me, I thought, what song am I going to associate with the Hierophant? Now, Gregorian chant came up to mind because, again, that's very religious. It's like Catholic Church. Not that I'm Catholic, because I'm not, but I find Gregorian chant to be interesting and to be helpful at times to listen to. But what came to mind, because we're talking about channeling, or the Hierophant being a channel between heaven and earth, then that song that came out a few years ago by Joan Osborne is called One of Us. And it's this person seeing God, you know, what if God were one of us and he was on the same bus as you, and that kind of thing. And I like that kind of down-to-earth philosophy about it. And so I thought that kind of relates well to this Hierophant. So I'll include a link to that song. I have two versions of it, the original by Joan Osborne and another one by a group that calls themselves Gregorian, because what they do is they do modern covers, or kind of Gregorian-like covers of modern songs, including that one. So I thought that would be interesting to both those songs would be interesting to you. So I hope this reading has been helpful for you. If you've not already subscribed, please hit the subscribe button. I appreciate your feedback. I appreciate your comments, and have a tremendous week. And remember, illumine your mind, inspire your life with the tarot.